Hey, you fans of hip hop, old school, new school, you need to get on board with what Boldy James has been doing in the rap game over the past 10 to 15 years. I mean, my goodness, this is pretty crazy. Like, you know of the crew, or should I say the group that he's affiliated with. That's Griselda, that's Westside Gunn, Benny the Butcher, Conway the Machine, that whole camp. Makami's affiliated. But for hip hop fans who, let's say you're an older hip hop fan, say your favorite era was like in the mid 90s or something like that, to where you like that New York rugged sound, that Mobb Deep, early Nas, Raekwon, Ghostface, Duck Down, that's like Boot Camp Click, Helter Skelter, Smith and Wesson, Black Moon, OGC, and you were into digging in the crates, right? Let's say mid to late 90s, all the way through, let's say the Common, Mos Def, Black Thought and the Roots, like that whole late 90s, early 2000s neo soul era. Let's say that you want something like contemporary, something like kind of now-ish, that kind of harkens back to some of the lyricism that you were into during one of those golden eras, so to speak. Well, the answer to that, or rather the solution for that, would be a rapper like Boldy James, and his output is what has been standing out like crazy. Like, his lyrics are really good. He's one of those kind of stream of consciousness type rappers. Think like Earl Sweatshirt, where it's like a nonchalant flow, very lackadaisical, you know, kind of deep voice, but it sounds like it could build into like a run-on sentence, right? Where it's just kind of continuously going as you're kind of playing out this narrative, you know, kind of like a street narrative with like some humor and sensibility, right? You're kind of doing that lyrical thing. And you might otherwise think that like Boldy James might have been inspired by an Earl Sweatshirt until you realize that he's been doing this for years. Like, he was putting out stuff in the early 2010s. And it's interesting because when you look at him, when you look at Conway and Westside Gunn, because they've started to really blow up a lot more in the, let's say, the Spotify streaming era, right? And then obviously, you know, I mean, Conway and Westside Gunn for a time were signed to Shady, the Slim Shady Aftermath, but they also just went on a run of just like independent releases that just went crazy, just kind of building a following, not crazy commercially, but in terms of being like among hip hop heads, kind of one of those go-to must listens. But they started to really emerge even more because they were, you know, they were around, Westside Gunn, Conway, in like the early 2010s as well, but they really started to take off in the streaming era. So if you're just starting to get privy to rappers like Westside Gunn, Conway, Benny the Butcher, Makami, and so forth, you might think that these are some new jacks who might be in their, you know, late 20s, early 30s, but it's like, nah, like these dudes are like in their 40s. Boldy James is in his 40s, early 40s, but he could still appeal to everybody from old school to new school fans because he's got this fresh approach that has become popular, that kind of lackadaisical run-on sentence style. I would say, you know, he's from Detroit, a rapper from the West Coast that kind of does something similar, but with a different worldview or perspective would be Larry June from the city, from San Francisco. And rappers like this they will team up with the producer for the entire project. Like, you know, they both, Larry June and Boldy James, have projects with like The Alchemist, or Boldy James had a really good one called Across the Tracks from last year with Conductor Williams, one of the better or more known Griselda producers and associates, him and like Derringer, right? Certain producers. But a lot of these rappers will team up for entire projects with a particular producer. And I've always liked that approach. I liked it when Currency did it back in the day. And Currency, I feel, is very influential. And I'm gonna do a separate video on Currency and the influence that he's had on that kind of stream of consciousness style, because I think that the ripples of and the effect of his work is permeates this type of MC and current rapper that I'm talking about. I mean, Currency is still around and creating a lot of material, but I'm just saying that he, to me, influenced this future generation. And Currency would often team up with, you know, one producer sometimes at a time, like a Harry Fraud, which, I mean, Boldy James has done entire projects with Harry Fraud. Sometimes you'll see Freddie Gibbs do something similar. He's got like 2 with Madlib. He did one with Alchemist, and, you know, years ago did one with like Static Selecta. Action Bronson would do the same thing. But all that to say, I like those producer MC per project pairings. And Boldy James, again, he's got that lackadaisical, nonchalant flow with very good lyrics, but it's just amazing that he's been able to keep up with this output. Like, put it like this, I said that he was releasing material throughout the 2010s, right? Let's just pick it up from 2020 to now. I won't even give you all the names. It's just way too much to get into in terms of going project by project, name by name. He's released so much material, I'm not even gonna dig up all of the images, the CD cover artwork to accompany that in this video. But I'll let you know from 2020 to now, how many projects per year, this is between like albums, EPs, and mixtapes, that Boldy James has released. In 2020, 4 projects. Remember, that was the pandemic year. 4 albums, mixtapes, or EPs in 2020. In 2021, 2. In 2022, 4 more projects. In 2023, he released 3, but there's a catch to this one. He was in a devastating, life-threatening car accident in like late January of 2023. So he released 3 albums in that year. So he was about to have a super productive 2023, got in a devastating car accident, recovered well, but it took time. But he actually recovered and exceeded those timelines, and then was rapping about it, you know, by 2024, because he released 1 more project in 2023. So he released 2 in January, got in that devastating car accident, and had another release like mid-year, but I think it was stuff that he had already recorded prior. And then he had a comeback album in 2024 called 1LB, One Lucky Bastard was the name of it. And that was early 2024. And in 2024, he released 5 projects. And I think 2024 was one of his best years. Like whatever year he released that BoJack or Bo Jackson album with The Alchemist, that's kind of seen as being one of his best projects. Let me know, by the way, if you have a favorite Boldy James album or 3. But I looked at 2024 as maybe being his strongest year. Like these projects were really, really good. From that Across the Tracks album with Conductor Williams to he did The Brictionary with Harry Fraud. And then at the end of the year, like December of 2024, he released Hidden in Plain Sight with Who the Hell is Carlo? And that might have been, along with the Conductor Williams one, that might have been his other best project in 2024. But think about it. 5 releases. So ever since that car accident, he's just come back with a vengeance and has had this onslaught of output. And we're in 2025 and he's already released 1 album called Permanent Ink, which actually has a different style of producer. Like listen to that one. Very different from his other projects in terms of the styles of beats. A lot of times he kind of either has like a boom bap or boom bap like style, or he'll have the type of beat where, you know, the beat kind of loops, but there's not even necessarily a drum in it. It's just like the sample or some strings or something to kind of create the menacing ambiance. And then he's just kind of got his run-on style flow going with that no drum beat. He often does a lot of that stuff. And again, you hear artists like Mach Homie do that. You hear a lot of that from West Side Gun. But the style of beats in Permanent Ink was pretty damn different, but I dug it. Again, that was this past January, and 1 month prior to that, he had that really good Hidden in Plain Sight. So again, he already has 1 release in 2025, and he's about to drop another one in like a week or 2. He's got one coming on February 27th called Token of Appreciation. It's a collab with Chuck Strangers. And then he's got another one scheduled for May 2nd with Real Bad Man. He's already done one with Real Bad Man in the past. And this one is called Conversational Pieces. So he's released 1 in 2025 and he's got 2 more ready to go. And I would be willing to bet that that's not the end of his 2025 output. So yeah, outstanding volume of music. And this isn't like the style of rap where you could just like kind of say whatever on the beats and don't have to put a lot of thoughts into the rhymes being said. No, again, these are very interesting, intricate, humorous, and just very smart bars throughout these songs. So it's not like you could just easily cook this up. But again, he's just rattling these projects off. Not too dissimilar from that crazy voluminous stretch that Currency had from like mid to late 2000s through like the 2015s. I mean, Currency has really not stopped, but I look at that as being kind of like his high point from like 08 to 09 through like 2014 to 2015, something like that. He was just on this incredible run of very good projects, from Weekend at Bernie's to Verde Terrace to Smokey Robinson to Covert Coup, like so many good projects. New Jet City was another one. But yeah, let me know if you are already into Boldy James. If you're not into his music, give that a listen, especially if you want to experience different rappers from today who are kind of reminiscent to like the styles, or at least the overall vibes of some of your favorite eras, the mid 90s, late 90s to early 2000s, anywhere in there. I would strongly encourage giving Boldy James a listen. And, you know, just in terms of his popularity, I'm gonna go off of like monthly listeners on Spotify. I know it's not the end all be all, and I know that not everybody has Spotify. Not everybody is a Spotify user, but I think that it's kind of a good gauge to relatively one to the next artist to the next artist, kind of get an idea in terms of who is more or less popular overall in terms of overall listenership than other artists. And I'm just gonna kind of give you his monthly listenership compared to some of his peers, right? Benny the Butcher, 1.7 million monthly listeners, 1.7 million. Conway the Machine, a little bit lower than that, 1.1 million. Westside Gunn, more than both, 3.1 million. I was actually surprised that Westside has such a bigger listenership than basically both of them combined. Boldy James has 2 million monthly listeners. So Boldy James has more Spotify listenership overall than Benny the Butcher and Conway the Machine. Think about that, but not more than Westside Gunn. And then you've got like Mock Hami, who's just under 500,000. Billy Woods, another really good rapper. Billy Woods, if you haven't given him a listen, or his duo called Arm & Hammer. Billy Woods solo has just under 200,000 listeners. And then his duo Arm & Hammer has just under 300,000 monthly listeners. But again, 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify for Boldy James. So he's not lacking in popularity. It's just either you know about him or you don't. And not everybody who knows about Griselda knows about Boldy James, even though if you've listened to enough, Westside Gunn or Conway, you've heard tracks featuring Boldy James. By the way, I like Stove God Cooks as well. I mean, I just heard that new Westside Gunn project, and man, Stove God he just adds so much to those tracks, just character, just the energy wise and lyrics. He's got such improved lyrics, and he could just body a chorus just with the most saying and singing the most absurd things. It's so dope. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Boldy James, if you're familiar with his music. And again, if you have like 2 or 3 favorite Boldy James projects, let me know what those are in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.